Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining this MEFA webinar, which is a Q&A with college admissions experts. My name is Julie Shields Rutina, and I am the Director of College Planning, Education, and Training at MEFA. And I'm going to just go over a few logistics, and then we'll turn it right over to our expert panel. So our expert panel, wonderful admissions experts, Jonathan Aylshire from Brandeis University, Joe DiCarlo from Worcester State University, and Maria Cristina Gavilan from Worcester Polytechnic Institute. So three very different, terrific institutions here in Massachusetts as well, and you'll learn a lot about those. Just a few logistics. You can control your audio. The chat feature for all of you has been turned off. So if you have questions, and I hope you do, please put those in the Q&A, and a lot will be covered when the panel is speaking, but then we will leave time at the end to make sure we get all of your questions answered. And if you need to leave, feel free, because we are going to record this and send you the recording, and you'll be able to have that if you have to leave early or if you want to share it with someone. And lastly, if you'd like closed captioning, you can hit the live transcript button and you'll be able to see the words that we're speaking across the screen. And a couple of words about MEFA. MEFA has been around since 1982, and our mission is to help families plan, save, and pay for college. So with that, I will just say, please, look to me for often as a resource. We have a terrific website. We have lots of webinars. We have some in-person events in the community. We also have a podcast, and we have all of these social media handles as well. So whatever suits you, how you like to receive your information, take advantage of that. And I'll also say this, if you ever have questions throughout this whole process, of college and planning and saving, here's our 800 number and our website our email that you can call and email at any time, and we're happy to help you. And I'll put these up at the end as well. But let me finish that. Let's take that. Okay. And now I would like to turn it over to our panelists. And first, I guess I'm going to ask you all if you would just go around for a few minutes and say a little bit about yourself, your career in the field of admissions, and a little bit about your institution. So I'll start with you, Maria Cristina.
Hi, so my name is Maria Cristina Gavilan, she, her, ella. I go by MC, a little bit easier to remember. I'm the Director of Admission for Access and Outreach at WPI. Been at WPI for a few years now, but been in admissions for over a decade. So what I really like about WPI, and it's kind of unique, is we are sort of a smaller, medium-sized school, about 5,400 undergrads. While you can study a variety of different things, we have over 50 different programs. We really specialize in STEM and business, heavy emphasis on the STEM. About 60% of our students are engineering majors, but we have a variety of students who study different things, such as concentrations in pre-health, computer science being our most popular major. We also are known for our project-based learning curriculum, where students are really able to practice. We have practice and theory in the classroom. So students are able to kind of collaborate on a variety of different projects throughout all 4 years as early as their freshman year. We have a really cool one, IQP, Interactive Qualifying Project, that happens during students' junior year, where they're actually going off for one of our quarters, because we have a quarter system. So a student takes 3 classes over 7 weeks, 4 times throughout the year. So during one of those quarters, they are actually going abroad to complete their IQP project. So it's a really unique opportunity to kind of use all of the knowledge that they have and work on a STEM project with a humanities focus and really helping a community. And that's just some of the opportunities that we have at WPI. We are located in Worcester, so in the heart of Massachusetts. If you want to learn more, you're welcome to kind of reach out. We have tours all the time, but I'll pass it on to other panelists now.
Thank you, MC. I'll call you MC. And Jonathan.
Well, hello, everyone. Jonathan Elshire, the Director of Admission at Brandeis University. We're located in Waltham, Massachusetts, so that's about 9 miles west of Boston. And we are a Research One university of about 3,500 undergraduate students. Research One just kind of being the designation for the level and quantity of research taking place on our campus. But that feel of a liberal arts school is very present. About half of our students have a double major. In fact, so it's really common to cross the disciplines. We have faculty that teach across the disciplines. And a few of the things that are on the horizon for Brandeis. One is we are about to break ground on a brand new residence hall. So it is a further commitment and investment in the residential nature of the university. First year students are required to live on campus, and the vast majority of students do live on campus across their 4 years. And then we are also, we have an award-winning career center at Brandeis, but we are integrating that at every step we can throughout your journey as an undergraduate. So it starts with orientation, and then it will happen in many different ways throughout your 4 years as well. It's not just an office to go and engage with when you're starting to think about an internship or a career, but it's really central and key to the university's mission as you work towards your bachelor's degree overall. And we offer about 50 different programs of study. So I will turn it over to Joe.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Joe DiCarlo. I'm the Dean of Enrollment and Director of Admissions at Worcester State. I've been in admissions for a little over 20 years. I've worked at a variety of institutions, and for the last 14 years, have been Dean and Director at Worcester State. Worcester State's a medium-sized public liberal arts and sciences university with around 5,000 students. We're located in the city of Worcester in a residential neighborhood on a 58-acre campus, actually not too far from WPI and MC, just a short drive from there. Another great benefit of Worcester is that there are 6 other colleges and universities in the city of Worcester, so it's a nice college town with about 36,000 or so college students that study at any one of those universities. At Worcester State, we offer around 90 different majors and minors. Some of our more popular programs are business administration, biology, criminal justice, psychology, and education. We also have a pretty well-known nursing program, but a lot of different options available for students. Through our Major Plus program, all of our students will graduate with 2 programs of study, either a double major or a major and minor as part of their degree, which is done in 4 years for the same cost. So you kind of add on to your baccalaureate program and graduate with those 2 programs of study, which we feel positions our students really well in the job market or for graduate school. Our students are engaged through our honors program. They complete internships, undergraduate research, study abroad. We're proud to see that 98% of our students graduate or of our graduates are employed or in graduate school within about 6 months of graduation. Additionally, we're a residential campus. We do offer a 4-year housing guarantee. We see about 1,600 students live on our campus. So there is a vibrant campus life. We offer about 45 different clubs and organizations, and we do have a Division III varsity athletic program with about 20 different sports. So happy to be here tonight and look forward to answering your questions.
That's great. Thanks, Joe. And Joe, I'm going to have you start it off. Some of these questions I have been asked over the last month from parents and students who have written in. But one question people always have is, say I'm a junior, I want to start at the beginning. How should a student begin thinking about the admissions process? And how do you begin that process of deciding, where to apply? I hear this notion of balanced list. What does that mean? And yeah, how do you start to look for colleges, whether you have a specific major in mind or not?
Sure. Yeah, so I think a really good place to start is to think about what kind of college experience you're looking for. And a lot of students will start to think about, how far away, if they're interested in going to school from home, right? So distance. Do you want to be more local? Do you want to be able to, be easily accessible to get home if you need to? Are you going to commute? Are you going to live on campus? What kind of academic offerings are you interested in? So are you a student that already knows exactly what they want to study, or are you a little bit more undecided? And so obviously you want to look at the academic programs that a college is going to offer to make sure that they have those options available to you. Are you interested in things like internships and undergraduate research and study away, some of those co-curricular activities? Or do you think you might be interested in playing sports? And does the college offer the particular sport you're interested in? And at what varsity, what division are their programs? Some students will also consider whether or not they want to go to a public university or a private school. And then obviously to your point around, sort of fit and balancing a list, you may want to consider sort of selectivity. What does their admissions process look like? How selective or maybe not selective is the university in terms of gaining admission? And then cost, if that's a concern for your family. So you want to round out your list in terms of making sure you have some options, both in terms of gaining admission, but also some financial options for your family as well. Next, I would think about definitely meeting with your school counselor or your college counselor or someone that's familiar with the college admissions process to just sort of help them, better understand what you're looking for. And they're usually very knowledgeable around the colleges that are going to match up with what you're looking for in terms of fit and characteristics. And they can sort of help you narrow down a list of schools to start to explore. So those are great resources that you can leverage. You want to think about joining mailing lists. You can go to the college websites. You can join mailing lists through different college search sites. And that's just a great way for colleges to begin sending you information, whether it be through email, whether it be through mail, also checking out their social media accounts or their websites. So again, you can kind of start to familiarize yourself with some of the schools that you're adding to your list. You want to take advantage of opportunities to start to interact with the college. So if they have virtual events, maybe they offer a virtual tour on their website that you can begin to learn about the campus and what the students are doing. And you can do that in a virtual format just from the convenience of your own home, right? You can also take advantage of different types of virtual events that they might be offering, like an information session or an opportunity to connect and interview with an admissions counselor or an alumni representative in a format that makes it easy and convenient for you, just like we're doing tonight online. And then once you really start to kind of find those schools that are really excite you, you want to think about scheduling some in-person visits. The website looks really good, has lots of good information, as do the brochures, but there's a lot to say about actually getting on the campus, walking around, taking in kind of the sights and sounds and looking at the facilities to really gauge whether or not that school is going to meet what you're looking for. And so there's opportunities to tour the campus, to maybe meet with an admissions representative in person if they offer that opportunity, or even consider attending a larger event like an open house. And most colleges are going to offer the ability to tour campus, throughout the year. Some of the open house events might, if you're a junior right now, will likely be on your calendar for the fall. So certainly would encourage you to start to think about that in person, on campus visit as well. In terms of creating that balanced list, I mean, I think one example that I thought might help to kind of contextualize that for students tonight is to, when we think about selectivity or admission, right? One thing that most colleges can provide you with is sort of what an average accepted, GPA or high school profile is usually a student that is going to be competitive for admission to their university. And so, for instance, at Worcester State, our average accepted student high school GPA is around a 3.2. So if you have a solid B average, you're going to be competitive for admission to Worcester State. So that that's a school that, would be pretty safe to apply to. If your GPA is above a 3.2, then you might just be you may be more competitive for an invitation to our honors program or for a merit scholarship. If your GPA is below a 3.2, we still want you to apply to our university. That the 3.2 is just an average. It's not a cutoff or a definitive minimum. But there might just be other opportunities. It might become a little bit more of a reach school for you, and there might be other components of your application that we're going to take into account to determine whether or not we can offer you admission. Ours is a 3.0. For other schools, it might be a 3.5. It might be a 4.0. But that just provides some base context in terms of where you might fall academically as you start to formulate your list and have an idea of those schools that you're going to be more competitive for admission or not. And then obviously you can certainly consider cost. You might have an idea of sort of what what you're able to afford. There's tuition costs are generally pretty easy to find on a college website. But know that there's lots of options to make the college affordable, no matter how expensive or least expensive a school might seem to you. But it always is good to just to have a variety of schools at different price points that offer the opportunities to support students financially. Our goal is to ultimately make college as accessible to as many students as possible, right? Whether that be academically or financially. But sometimes those things are going to line up more specifically for students based upon their individual circumstances.
Thank you, Joe. And Maria Christina, I'll turn to you to maybe build upon what Joe was saying. There's a term that I hear admissions folks talk about often called demonstrated interest. And so can you talk about what that is and build upon some of those things that that students can do when they're interacting with colleges?
Sure. So I think I reflect on when I was exploring colleges, demonstrated interest is not a term I was familiar with. I don't have a family that has a long history of even being in the US, so attending school in the US and familiar with admissions process. So it wasn't something I really knew what it was until I started in admissions. But demonstrated interest is really what some schools, not all, but some schools will look at it at various different points of the admissions process. Maybe initially when they're reviewing schools or during when they're considering removing students from the wait list and accepting them. It really it's kind of how much interest you've demonstrated to an institution. You can do that in a variety of different ways. Joe mentioned a lot of ways you can start by doing that. It's attending a virtual event. It could be you've interacted with a school at a college fair. Maybe your school's hosting one, or we know that NEACAC hosts some, or there's some national college fairs that happen in Boston and Springfield annually. It could be that, again, your high school college counselor is a great resource because a lot of times colleges, like I know we're visiting high schools in the fall. So they usually have a running list of where you can sign up for schools you might be interested in. Going to meet with them, filling out an information card or an online kind of QR code, giving them your information. Schools are sometimes tracking how often they're seeing you at different events and how often you're engaging. It could be, even just like replying to emails from your admissions counselor. I think a lot of times it can be scary sometimes to feel like you can ask questions about like selectivity and disclosing information like, oh, I have this SAT score. We're going to see it anyway if you apply. So just kind of building that relationship sometimes can benefit a student. And again, going to campus, I always recommend whether you're able to do it virtually or in person, because I know sometimes colleges can be a long distance. Maybe you don't have transportation there. Even engaging virtually, we take that into account. Like I know for us at WPI, it is something that it's not a huge thing, but it is something we looked at. I've worked at other institutions where that can sometimes be the determining factor in a committee of a student is like, we know they want to come here. There are also colleges that we have supplemental essays where they ask, why WPI? Why do you want to come here? Where do you see yourself fitting in? If you haven't really engaged virtually or by coming to campus, it's kind of hard to give specifics on that question. And a lot of times students who have kind of been in interaction with us more can better tell us about where they see themselves, what's really unique to the institution. And so I think that's something that, again, it's important question you can even ask different institutions of how you weigh demonstrated interest in the admissions process. Some don't look at it at all, and some it can be really influential. It can be that one thing that tips you over that, hey, this student has visited several times. They mentioned it in the supplemental essay. They have, really engaged with us. I think this student, we should be, someone who would be really wanting to be part of our community. So I think that's something that, to keep in mind. So just know that you can interact with colleges in a variety of different ways, but if you're really wanting to make sure that you stay on a college's radar, it's please, show up to the high school visit, come in and visit virtually or in person.
Thank you. And Jonathan, I'll turn to you. So clearly there are so many different types of institutions with different policies. So can you talk about those different choices, 2-year, 4-year, public, private, and some of the differences that come with some of those, some of the issues that we've discussed?
Absolutely. Yeah. So public and private is probably the first differentiator. And from the student experience perspective, that doesn't change a lot. Both are institutions that you can earn and work towards your degree. Both have faculty, both have student affairs, different services. And one of the kind of back end differences might be a little bit the funding of the institution. A public institution typically receives a little bit more federal or state funding, and a private institution typically is a little bit more driven based on an endowment and the tuition that they are receiving from the students currently attending that particular school. 2-year and 4-year. So 2-year institutions are schools that are typically working towards an associate's degree. So that is a degree you can earn generally in 2 years, and it is the degree before a bachelor's degree, which is what typically a 4-year institution is offering. 2-year institutions tend to be the community colleges. So the community college in your neighborhood is likely a 2-year institution. That is not and always, but a most often structure for that community school. And for some students, that community college, that two-way pathway is a terrific step into the college process for a variety of reasons. It may be cost related. Community colleges tend to be a more affordable option for those first 2 years. It may be that you are looking to stay closer to home and there's not a 4-year institution that's immediately adjacent to your house. So you'll stay the first 2 years closer, and then four-year final 2 years at a 4-year institution might venture a little bit further. Or it might be that perhaps you have really struggled in high school and you need to really maybe do a little bit of credit recovery from high school, or you just think that you really need a transition and a moment to rethink and learn college before you step into the bachelor's degree program. 2-year institutions also serve a really broad spectrum of students. There are people there that have just finished their high school diploma or their GED, through adults that have taken many different paths through their education. The 4-year college is where you are typically working towards a bachelor's degree. So a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Arts degree. And those are often degrees that are required for certain types of jobs. So if you're thinking about a particular career path, that can always be good just to research and see, is an associate's degree the degree that particular position is looking for, or is it a bachelor's degree? And that will help you maybe determine if the 2-year path is the right and final path, or if the 4-year path is one to ultimately work towards. So you can begin your studies at a 4-year institution that first year and work all 4 years at that same school, or perhaps you complete your associates at the 2-year institution and then you transfer to a 4-year degree for your essentially equivalent of junior and senior year, and then earning that bachelor's degree. So ways to combine those two types of schools, or just pursue one or the other. And then thinking a little bit about the different, I guess, methods of application into each of these. Some of these institutions will have essentially open enrollment. It will be as long as you submit an application or a form or some type of document that they are requesting by a date, you would be able to take classes there the following semester. Others have different deadlines. So there might be something like regular decision or early action or early decision. So regular decision tends to be often the largest deadline. It is the one that doesn't come with any strings attached. If you're offered admission, you then have full choice of whether or not you decide to enroll in that particular institution. Early action is similar in terms of that commitment level most often. It's just happening earlier in the process. So often that application is due earlier than a regular decision. You receive an admissions decision earlier than regular decision, but you still have that choice after being offered admission, whether you enroll in that institution or not. And then that last option, early decision. So this is one where it is a binding agreement. By submitting your application, you're agreeing that if this college offers you admission, you will enroll at that college. So when you know it's a very clear number one, it's exactly where you want to be the following semester, that can be a really terrific option to pursue. But if you have a lot of schools in that top third or top quarter of your list and you can't quite decide when applications are due which one might be best, or maybe you need to sit and look and compare compare the financial aid offers from multiple institutions to determine the best fit, then early decision may not be a good pathway. That decision of what type of application deadline to pursue is likely one to start thinking about a little bit later in the summer before your final year of high school, or in the fall of that final year of high school, when that list is narrower and you start to see some of those schools rising to the top of your list, and maybe others that are maybe more in the middle of your list overall. Another element that comes into play here are standardized tests. So that means the SAT or the ACT. A good number of institutions are test optional, and so that really puts the decision in your hands to decide whether or not to submit an SAT or not to an institution. Some schools require the SAT or ACT, and for that reason, it can be good to be taking those tests so you have a score to decide whether or not you want to send to a particular school, as opposed to maybe it is mid to late fall of your senior year and you find the school that you really love, but you learn they're a test required institution. So what does that test optional really mean? It's something I think to ask each admissions office once you know where you're applying. Do they evaluate applications differently for students with tests or without tests? Are scholarships awarded differently for students with tests or without? How does that factor in or not factor in when a test score is submitted to that institution? And you'll find that while a lot of schools may say test optional because they are, some of those further questions might differentiate a little bit more, and it might be you decide one or two schools that are test optional. It would be to your advantage to submit test scores, and maybe one or two schools that are test optional, you decide that the test scores aren't something that you would like included in that application process. And merit scholarships is another piece that goes into this consideration, and I think really partly plays into the admissions deadline that you choose. Every institution, if they offer merit scholarship, does it differently. Some institutions automatically consider every single application they have for different merit scholarships. Other institutions may actually have an earlier date your application needs to be submitted. So it might still be that regular decision, right? That no commitment deadline, but they're asking for the application sooner. And other schools may have really specific application components. So perhaps additional letters of recommendation or additional essays, or even just additional check boxes on the application that, yes, you're interested in a particular program, and that's a way of raising your hand for a merit scholarship. So as you move through that college search process, merit scholarships and asking what a school offers in that category can be really helpful. And then I think once you have the list of where you're likely applying, that's when you need to ask those really specific questions. How do I make sure that I'm considered for merit scholarship? Is it a deadline? Is it an application? Or just by applying to your institution, will I be considered for a particular merit scholarship?
That's great. Thank you. And so, Joe, I'm going to ask you the next question. On the campus, in the admissions office, how are admissions applications evaluated? What are you looking for?
Sure. Great question. Thanks, Julie. And certainly welcome my colleagues, Jonathan and MC, to add if I missed anything, because each office really kind of does things differently, right? They're going to have a process that fits their institutional goals, priorities, and sort of what they're looking for in an ideal candidate for admission. But I'll sort of speak broadly just in my experience. But it's probably best to start with understanding what are the components of the admissions application, right? So when a student applies to a college, they generally will submit an application. Most students will complete a Common App. Some students may elect to complete the university or college's own institutional application. Nowadays, almost all students are submitting those online. In addition to an application, students are also submitting a transcript, high school transcript, and also perhaps college transcripts if they've taken dual enrollment courses or they're applying as a transfer student. Some students that are electing to submit test scores may submit their ACT or SAT test scores if they're applying to a school that either requires them or if they're choosing to submit as part of test optional admission process. And then in additional, most students will also submit letters of recommendation, oftentimes from their school counselor, as well as an academic letter of recommendation from a teacher that knows them in the classroom. Always nice to see when students list their activities. It can be done on the Common App, but some students will also submit a supplemental activity sheet or a resume. And then again, very common as part of the Common App, but could be done as a supplemental is an essay. Now, most colleges, again, are going to have different things that they're looking for, a different way of doing things. But I would say that most colleges are going to have a process that's holistic, where all of the components that I just outlined are going to be considered as part of the admissions decision. There are a few maybe that are a little bit more driven quantitatively by numbers, like a GPA or a minimum test score. But most of the 4 different colleges that I've worked at, we've all taken a holistic approach to reviewing students' applications for admission, really looking at all of the components. But there's definitely one that has a little bit more weight than the others, and that would be your academic or your transcript. We want to make sure that we're admitting students to our university, our colleges that are prepared for college level coursework, right? And the best way to determine that is really looking at your high school transcript to gauge how you've prepared yourself for college. And some of the things that we're looking for in your high school transcript are your course selection. What classes have you taken in high school? Have you taken 4 years of math or 4 years of English, 4 years of a social science, foreign language? And those requirements are sort of the number of units that they're looking for, again, may vary from institution to institution, but what classes you've elected to take is oftentimes important and weighted. We look at the rigor of your curriculum. Usually standard or college prep level coursework is going to be the baseline for students that are interested in going on to college, but certainly welcome opportunities for students that have taken advantage of honors courses or AP courses or even dual enrollment college level coursework as well, to demonstrate your ability to be successful in that type of coursework when you move on to college. Obviously, we're taking a look at your grades. We're taking a look at your grade trends. So really all of that information that we're gathering off the transcript is really valuable information as we're evaluating you for admission to our universities. And so that, in my experience, has been where the most weight has been placed. And then in addition, beyond that, every school is a little bit different. Some schools may be really interested in your letters of recommendation, in your test scores if you submitted them. They may be really curious to see what you've shared in your college essay. But we really need to look at the college application process and sort of what you submit as different puzzle pieces. And we're putting all those puzzle pieces together to really get a picture of who you are as a person, both academically and socially. Because through our admissions process, what we're really focused in on and what we're trying to do as an admissions committee is build a community of new students that are going to come and join our college campuses. And so we want to feel confident when evaluating you for admission that you're going to be a successful member of our community academically, that you're going to embrace opportunities to get involved in the campus life, and that you'll also be a good standing member of our community as well. And we're able to determine that through all the different components of the application, with, again, probably the most weight being placed on the academic pieces, such as your transcript.
Thank you. And I'll bring up one of the elements of the application, the essay, that we tend to get lots and lots of questions about it from students, from parents. So Maria Cristina, can you talk about what makes a good college essay?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, on students' applications, sometimes they have the opportunity to really pick a topic, and sometimes they don't have the opportunity to pick a topic. But it is really important to understand, first and foremost, what is the question asking that you're supposed to be answering and writing about. So, for example, on the Common Application, there's a variety of different topics that you can choose from, whether it's going to be talking about maybe challenges you had to overcome or interests that you have, or you can pick a topic of your choice. Or there may be other supplemental essays that are really focused on talking about why this particular institution or covering a specific topic. So really make sure that you understand the question or the topic that the essay is supposed to be about. And then I always appreciate when students really think about, what they want us to know. I think Joe did a really good analogy of this is a puzzle piece. We're really trying to kind of put the picture together. This is students' opportunity to really speak to us and say, okay, what else do you really want us to highlight or know about you? Maybe that we're not going to see in other aspects of your application, or reading between the lines we may miss out on. So what do you want us to do? kind of take away from that. I would say a really good college essay for me is one that touches on a couple of different things. The greatest example I can always think of, I've read quite a few essays, is a student who wrote a recipe about herself. And she was really able to dive into the various different identities she held. For example, being a daughter, being an older sister, being a skateboarder, being, a member of the Girl Scouts, but also talked about her passion and interest, and really gave me a better insight of where I could see her fitting into our community and being a part of different things. I would say another advice is just read it to a teacher, to a parent, to a friend. Does this sound like you? Do you think that you think about the message you're trying to convey to us? Is the person that you read this essay to, or they read it, did they feel like they took away and walked away from those same things that you were trying to have us take away? And then last but not least, make sure you edit it for spelling, for any grammar, spacing, things like that. But I really always tell students, sometimes I hear students where they want to focus on, maybe they struggled in a particular course and they think that this is the place where they need to talk about specifically academics. We can see your transcript. We can see what your grades are. There's, especially in some applications like Common App, a place for additional info where you can give us more insight. Your essay should really be focused on, what else do you want us to know about you? What are you passionate about? Where can you see yourself growing in college? So that's what I think are some of the things that make a really good essay.
Thank you. And I'll just say, before, I have one more question right now to ask, and I'm going to ask it of you, Jonathan. But before I do, I'll just say we have a few questions in the queue, and we're going to get to those. And there's some interesting ones there, so that will be fun. But this question involves cost of college. So before I give this question to Jonathan, I guess I'd just like to say that MEFA does lots and lots of webinars on the financial aid process, how that works, how to apply. So I would just encourage you to look at mefa.org/events as we move along in the spring, summer, and fall. And you'll find lots of information about the financial side of it. But it's tied together with admissions. And so this question I have for you, Jonathan, is how should a family consider the overall cost of college in the admissions decision?
Absolutely. So I think when you're at that stage of the admissions process where you likely have multiple offers of admission, cost can absolutely be a piece that you use to differentiate some of those schools. The way you get to that step is, as you're researching where you're applying, make sure you know, like I said earlier, the merit scholarship deadlines. Joe mentioned really nicely at the beginning about thinking about cost up front as you're building your list of where to even research. And one of the pieces you can think about before you have that final financial aid package is what's called the net price calculator. Every college has some version of that on their website, and it can give a really rough estimate of what type of sometimes merit aid or need-based financial aid may be awarded to you if you're offered admission. So when you're at that stage and you have those financial aid offers, that means you've submitted the documentation the college is requesting, typically at least the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Private colleges may also ask for a form called the CSS profile, and then all kinds of other documents that a financial aid office may ask. And you need to see what type of aid is there. And this is really, Julie, MEFA's an area of expertise, certainly of your guidance that you and your team offer. But understanding that some financial aid is grant, meaning it does not need to be repaid to the institution. It is just money that is being given and essentially kind of subtracting from the bill that college sends you. And part of a financial aid package might be loans. So a federal loan, like a Stafford loan or something, may be a part of the package. And that's something that ultimately accrues interest and you're responsible for repaying. The type of school you're going to and your ultimate degree goal should also be a part of this consideration, right? So don't get so focused on making year one work. You need to make sure you can make each year you plan to be at that college work. So if you're scraping together and pulling too deeply from savings to cover that cost of the first year, what happens in year two if the college costs the same amount and offers you the same amount of financial aid? So think about something that is sustainable across the 2 years or the 4 years that you plan to be in a particular school. And ask questions of the colleges. One of the aspects of need-based financial aid is financial circumstances can change quickly in a way that your taxes from 2 years ago don't reflect. And so you need to perhaps be in touch and go through an appeal process, let them know current financial situations, and that may change an ultimate package. So choosing the right fit college is about the school where you'll excel and do well academically and socially, but it's also the financial fit. It needs to be a school where you're looking and you understand, what does this cost my family, or what does this cost me, and where will I be at graduation? What type of debt may I have, or no debt may I have from a particular college and the package that they put together for me. But absolutely, that's a part of the conversation. Admissions offices are happy to be a part of that conversation. The financial aid offices are happy to be a part of that conversation. So reach out and ask questions. It's not something you just need to sit down and figure out at the kitchen table by yourself. There's resources around you to be thinking through and to learn what all of those different types of aids and costs may be that a particular college offers.
Thank you. That's great. So I've been staring at this first question for a little bit now, and I'm kind of excited to ask it. It's a good question, but it's actually kind of an impossible question. But I think, well, I'll say the question and then I'll say what I think about it. So the question is, how do you get into MIT and have minimal debt? And so the reason I say I guess I'm just going to let you panelists, experts answer it. And I think that there's probably a lot that you could share just about thinking about the whole process in answering that question that I think could be valuable. So I don't know who would like to maybe tackle that first, and
I
we
mean,
can all share.
none of us work for MIT, right? So we
Right.
can't give a specific
Right.
answer to that.
No,
What I would say is, even if we did have an admissions staff member here from MIT, even they couldn't tell you the exact formula to get admission into MIT. As was talked about earlier, that idea of holistic admissions and looking at multiple factors. Yes, your academic record is really influential, but it's all of these other pieces, and that can change from year to year at schools. So there is not a formula to be offered admission to majority of schools. And then the debt component of that, like, how do you not only gain admission, but how do you make sure you don't have a lot of debt? It's making sure that you're going through and meeting their application deadlines, so that you are being considered for as much need-based financial aid as you're eligible for, that you're putting yourself in every merit scholarship pool that you can put yourself in, so that ultimately you've done some of that work to try and make the cost to you and your family whatever may be reasonable for your family, and potentially leading to limited or no debt on graduation.
I don't know if either of you have anything else to share about that. Okay.
I would just jump in and say, I think one of the mistakes I made when I was attending university is I didn't continue to look for scholarships after my first year. There are a variety of different campuses that hold scholarships, and specifically for current students, various different majors. I know that I've been on scholarship committees for institutions where they had it for a specific major, and it was like, specific major for men, and only women applied. And guess what? They're the ones who got it. So it's interesting. I know, just checking in with your financial aid office and saying, hey, if any other scholarships for current students become available, or any other grants, even if it's just a couple hundred that can help cover books, or could help cover additional class maybe you're taking over the summer. It's always good to continue checking with financial aid even after you're enrolled in an institution.
That's great. And I may add one thing too, I guess, since I've been thinking about that question, and just that it's good if you are interested in a certain institution to find out as much about that institution, of course, but I tend to really have students and parents keep an open mind. I feel like that makes the process go a little bit easier all the way through. So that's the one thing I would add about to that. Okay, and let me ask, would one of you like to talk about just study abroad programs on your campus and the availability of those?
Go for it.
Sure. I mean, it's a great question, and definitely, I would think college is a great time to consider studying abroad or away. Really, no better other time in your life when you have that flexibility to do so. And so, basically, I think the main key points to think about is that most colleges are going to offer a study abroad program. There usually is a designated office on each campus that works with students to identify an experience that's going to work for the student. For instance, at Worcester State, we offer 3 different options. A student can take a full semester and study, basically transfer to an institution abroad and take a full course load of classes and have those credits transfer back to Worcester State and get that full experience, over the course of 14 to 15 weeks. We also will have students that will take advantage of a 6-week program where they'll travel with a group of other Worcester State students and with a faculty member or two to a particular destination. And usually maybe they're taking 1 or 2 Worcester State classes at that location, in addition to also sightseeing and other types of experiences. And then the third would be some of our students will take advantage of a spring break trip, which is, about 10 days maybe. And so we like to have a variety of options based upon the flexibility that it offers students. There's also different price points. So financially, there's options available there as well. But I would say, we work with about 200 different locations, both domestically and internationally, for students to have an experience off of Worcester State's campus to participate in. And that's pretty typical at most colleges, including Brandeis, and WPI. So the 2 main things are they're available. There's support for you with professional staff. And there's usually a variety of options, locations, price points, ability to take classes and whatnot. And so it's a really great experience and certainly something that I'm sure we would all encourage students to consider.
Great. And another topic that someone asked about is, can you just talk a little bit about the transfer process? Is it difficult to transfer from one school to another? Are some reasons better than others? Some reasons to make the transfer, I guess.
The reason to transfer is because whatever your current school where you're enrolled offers is not what's right for you. So it might be they don't have the degree program, they don't have whatever it is that you feel like it's missing. If you think another college has it, that's a reason to explore transferring. The transfer process is far more fragmented than the first year admissions process. So first year admission applications tend to be due in the fall and winter. You apply to a lot of colleges by May 1st or maybe a little bit later. Transfer deadlines are all over the place. Sometimes schools allow spring entry or just fall entry. So you do need to narrow that list of where you're wanting to transfer. I think you should have a clear reason in your mind why the particular school you're submitting the transfer application to is right. And what that school's offering that you're really hoping is a part of your college experience. One of the challenges with transfer is credit, right? You've done the work, you've earned the grades, you want to make sure that continues to count toward your degree. So if you're starting college at perhaps like a 2-year institution, a community college, with the intention that you will transfer to a 4-year college to earn that bachelor's degree, you should start thinking about what that 4-year school may be so you can look at some of their requirements. It might be to transfer into their business program, they require class A, B, and C, or it might be the opposite, right? They say, don't take class A, B, and C, we want you to take our version of those classes. And it's better for you to spend your time in the first year or the second year in this liberal arts arena or something like that. So looking at the transfer credit process, I think can help smooth that transition in some way by making sure that you've done everything you can to take classes that will stay with you and will continue to build to your degree, wherever that may be.
That's great. So the question is, do colleges weigh students who interview more highly in terms of demonstrated interest? So that's a good question. And I'd just ask, maybe you could talk a tiny bit more about how different colleges handle interviews as required or not required or informational. Yeah, thanks.
I can jump in. So there's a variety of different options when it comes to interviews. Some colleges don't offer interviews. Some colleges offer interviews for evaluative purposes. When it comes to admissions, they're used in maybe whether they're evaluating a decision for admission or for like an honors program or a specific major. And then there are some colleges that offer interviews for informational purposes. You're able to meet with someone, they can answer questions, but they may not have any kind of bearing on whether you're admitted or not. They may not, some schools don't look at that for demonstrated interest. So I think it's important, again, to talk to the individual admissions counselor to reach out. That being said, if you're really looking for opportunities to demonstrate interest and show that you are interested, if a school is offering the opportunity to interview and you're able to do so, whether it's in person or virtually, generally would recommend it if you know that the school is looking at demonstrated interest. But again, some schools don't offer that. So that's why it's important to kind of reach out and see if there's other ways you can demonstrate that by either attending something virtually or attending an event on campus.
Thank you. And this next question is, what's considered a good SAT score to submit, and when does it change from help to hurt on an application?
I can start. I think what a good SAT score is really depending on institution. I always am wary of telling students to go to the website because generally, like for us, WPI was test blind for a few years. We will be moving to become test optional this coming year. So the data that we have on our website is, 4 years old. You can see that middle 50% of what students have been offered for us. I think it's a 13 between a 1340 and a 1480. That means 25% of students who were submitting test scores had below that and 25% had higher than that. Again, we're test optional. So those are students who are deciding to submit test scores, who probably are confident in their test scores. We have a no harm policy. So that doesn't mean that if you submit a test scores that below that you're not going to be admissible or may not be reflective of what's, good. It is really kind of an open-ended question. I think someone had mentioned earlier, Jonathan, that you should really talk to the university and ask them how they're using testing and how they use that, whether when it comes to admission, but also for merit, because what could be considered good for one school may not be competitive for a particular major or program at another school.
That's great. And this might be the last question, and I'm going to actually take a moment to answer it because the question is, could you quickly explain the FAFSA and CSS profile? I know you likely need to fill out both, but what is each used for? And so I'm going to use this as a moment to again say, this is probably a little bit of a longer conversation, but MEFA has lots of webinars all about FAFSA, all about CSS profile. We have, in fact, sole webinars on each one, as well as overviews of the whole process. So please come back, make sure you attend one of those. But briefly, the FAFSA and CSS profile are both financial aid applications. The FAFSA, every college requires the FAFSA if you're applying for any federal, state, and some institutional aid. So you're definitely going to do the FAFSA. And then the CSS profile is required by some colleges, mostly colleges who have a lot of their own institutional monies to award. And the difference is that the FAFSA has gotten pretty simple. So they ask you a number of questions, mainly financial questions. And the CSS profile is going to ask you more questions. So again, those colleges that have more resources to award feel like they need more information from families, so they require this additional form. So they ask questions maybe about your home equity, and they ask questions if you have a business, things like that. So there are just more questions on the CSS profile, but you should just look on the admission page of the college that you're applying to, and it will tell you what forms are required by that institution when you're to apply for financial aid. And again, much more than that if you attend some of the other webinars to get all the details. So I think that's the last question. I guess any parting words? Let me ask you, the three of you, to maybe give some parting wisdom on this process, and maybe even about parents, students communicating about all of this. Anything you'd like to share? So Joe, I'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, I think just be flexible through the process. You may have sort of a list already in your mind, but I think if you're open to, perhaps new colleges that get suggested to you, or perhaps new suggestions on different ways to apply to colleges or questions to ask. It's just important to be flexible through this process. I think that will help alleviate sort of some of the stress, but also set you up to have the best success when it comes to getting all of your admission decisions and having some really great options to consider.
Great. And Maria Christina?
I would say don't be afraid to ask questions and reach out. I know a lot of times, especially when you're applying to colleges, you may hear acronyms or words you're not familiar with, or terms. Don't be afraid to ask, what does that mean? Like, how does that affect me? And we are not scary people. We love to talk to students. There's no such thing as a dumb question when it comes to applying to college. So don't be scared of asking a question if you're not sure of something.
And Jonathan?
There are many moments of this process that can feel overwhelming. Use your resources and know that at the end of the day, you will have college options and you will end up at a school that is ultimately right for you. You will get to that end goal, even though at times it seems far away.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you all for sharing so much of your expertise and your wisdom, and thank you to all of the participants and the good questions, and we wish you good luck with all of it, and have a good evening, everyone.